It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. Believe it or not, that is brand new Fifth Angel from their latest release called The Third Secret, and the name of the tune there is called We Will Rise. Kind of a self-prophetic song there because Fifth Angel has risen once again, and they are back on the scene. And I want to welcome to the Classic Metal Show for the first time, bassist John Macko. How are you, John?
I'm doing good, man. I'm really good.
Excellent. Well, you know what, John, I got to be honest with you. I told you just previous to the interview that I am I'm a big fan of Fifth Angel. And, you know, when it was brought to my attention that you guys are, you know, back together and obviously recorded a brand new disc and whatnot, that was very exciting for me. But the question I have for you is, where you guys been?
Oh, boy, I don't think we have enough time in this interview for that question. It really, Wendell, I mean, you know, that's a tough question to answer. We've been kind of just, after the breakup of the band, you know, in the early 90s, thank you, Seattle grunge for that. Everybody kind of scattered to the winds, and we really didn't communicate a whole lot during the 90s. And as you know, that was a really tough time for all of the classic metal bands, not just ourselves, but I think all of the bands. And then kind of in the wake of the early 2000s, we had gotten an offer to play the Keep It True Festival in 2010, and that was really like out of left field, and that kind of was what got us all back together, for the short story.
Well, where would you say that Fifth Angel's strongest fan base is? Is it in the European market mostly?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. But interesting, if you would have asked me, 10, 15 years ago, does Fifth Angel have any fans? I would have said, you're crazy. Nobody cares about this band. And it's very interesting to all of us to realize that, we've always known that our strongest fan base has been Europe, but it's also in other countries. I think we have a pretty good fan base here in the U.S. We have fans that seem to be coming out of the woodwork in South America, Japan, Mexico. I've gotten emails and requests from people kind of all over.
Sure. Well, when you guys were, putting out your first two discs back in the mid to the late 80s, obviously you guys were looking to expand the band, I'm sure, and gain popularity and whatnot. At what point did you decide, or at what point did you think, are we not being as successful as we could be? And if not, what would be the reason?
You mean, so you're talking about back then?
Yeah, back then. You had two records, which were stellar records. And, that was the time to really make it happen. And, but obviously, because of as you mentioned at the very early part of the interview, because of the change in the music scene, that window may have closed for you.
It was, Wendell, and honestly, it was just bad timing. We were just off on the timing. We were after the Time Will Tell record came out. There was a lot of promise. I think Epic had some good plans for us. There was, if I recall, my memory's not so great anymore, but I remember that they were talking about putting us on tour with Scorpions and Accept, and as you may or may not know, we were also signed to Concrete Management back in those days. They were big. They were a big player. So we kind of had all of our ducks lined up in the row. And then, 1990 rolls along, and Nirvana comes out with Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it seemed like overnight that, bam, everything just the whole music scene changed, and now there was just no interest in that style of music anymore, and the industry, of course, shifted gears, and we're kind of just left out in the cold. And it wasn't short after that we're fighting an uphill battle. It was pretty obvious. The label was not interested in putting in any kind of support for us, and they dropped us, and then that was kind of it.
Yeah.
We
So what did you personally do with yourself? Obviously,
Me?
obviously your life's ambition was to be a musician to make a living. And we all know that is a very tough way to make a living unless you really happen to catch just that right time and, situation. So what did that do for you? Where did you go?
Well, I mean, yeah, personally, it kind of crushed me because, obviously every musician their dream is to get in a band, and they get signed to a record label, and they become rock stars and live happily ever after, right? That's the fairy tale. Unfortunately, the reality is that is not how it is, and it personally crushed me, and I'm kind of like, well, what do I do now? And I would say that probably what changed my life at that period of time was I had a daughter. I had a daughter, Madison, and that kind of made me rethink personally. What do I want to do? Obviously my dream was kind of crushed by that, and then now I have a daughter, and what do I do? Do I keep trying and now trying to go back to square one and try to make it again, or do I move on? And I actually chose to move on. So I actually had a career change, and went and did something different than playing music.
Well, during that time, did you keep your bass chops up? Did you pick up the bass and play, or did you just set that in the corner, or how did that work for you?
I did and I didn't. I kind of got out of it for a long time. Just kind of focused on my family at that time. And no, I didn't really do a whole lot of playing, unfortunately. But the old adage, you can take the man out of the music, but you can never take the music out of the man.
Right.
So the music has always been with me. It is, and always will, and it lives inside of us. And that's the one thing I think any kind of a creative, artistic person, you're always going to go through your ups and your downs in your creative, artistic career. And it's always with you. You never. It's part of your being. It's part of your soul. So when things kind of came full circle around again, it wasn't. It was right there. I mean, obviously, you don't lose it mentally. Obviously, you lose the chops. The physical aspect. But that's just physical. That's just getting back on the instrument and practicing.
Sure. Absolutely.
So does that make sense?
It does make sense. So when 2010 rolled around and you guys were asked to, play at the festival, was it one of those phone calls that you make? Dude, we're getting the band back together.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It was. I would have never, if you would have ever told me that I would have gotten that phone call, I would have said, you're insane. Honestly, it was like, who gives a shit about this band? in 2010. I certainly didn't think. I thought, nobody gives a shit about Fifth Angel anymore. But the Oliver, the guy who promotes the Keep It True festival, he told me, he goes, you'd be surprised. He goes, you guys still have a huge fan base out there. And I'm like, really? Seriously? But yeah. And so and I told him, I said, man, I haven't talked to some of these guys in years. I have no clue what they're doing, whether they're interested, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it was like, what do you guys think? You guys want to do this? Just for anything, it would just be for fun. We weren't thinking that we were going to revive our career and we're going to be rock stars again at 50. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, so a few years advanced now, and now you got to the point to where whose idea was it to say, hey, you know what, we ought to start recording some new stuff for a third record? How did that come to be?
Now, after the 2010 show, that obviously kind of put the bug in our ear, and we were like, hey, it'd be great to make another record. And we did try, but it was kind of like one roadblock after another. And after a couple of years of really trying to make that work, it just, things were not lining up. And we decided to, forget it. This just isn't happening. Then the 2017 offer to play the festival came up again. And that really was the what got the ball rolling. Again, we thought that wasn't going to restart or kickstart our career again, but we're like, hey, we had a great experience at that show. They made it, the promoters made it very comfortable for us, and it was kind of like a no-brainer. And so we played that festival, and I think we were really in better shape, and we did a better job. And it was just kind of luck where there was a head of A&R from Nuclear Blast there. His name is Yop, and he was at the show. And after our performance, he came up to me and said, man, he goes, you guys killed it. I love the band. I've been a fan of the band for 25 years like yourself. And he gave me his card. He's like, what do you think about, let's do a new record? And that's really what got the whole ball rolling. Now we're starting to think, okay, well, an offer from Nuclear Blast doesn't come around every day. So that's really what got, the serious ball. And then the great thing about that timing is that Ken Mary was actually supposed to play that show. But he had a shoulder injury, so it wound up that we had to wind up using Jeff McCormick from Q5 kind of at the last minute. Otherwise, Ken would have played that show. And since Ken was already back in the band, now we've got 4 of the 5 original members, at least from the Time Will Tell record, to start working on the possibility of this new offer from Nuclear Blast. So that's really how that all kind of came about.
Sure. Now, was it difficult for you to get into the mode of recording new stuff? Because obviously since the 80s, recording the first 2 records, the whole industry has changed in the way that you actually record, and the ease of it with digital recording equipment and things, as opposed to the tape back in the day. How was the recording process for you?
That actually worked to our advantage. That was a huge factor in making this record possible, because we're kind of spread out all over the country right now. Kendall and Ed are still in Seattle. I'm now down here in South Florida, and Ken is in Phoenix. So, doing it the old school way, I think would have been really, really hard. And with the digital, with the technology that we have, it really made it easy and cost effective for us to do this, not only in the writing stages, but also in the development of the songs. And all of us, Ken, of course, as he's a producer, and he's really got all of that stuff down, and myself and all of the other guys, we all have Pro Tools setups at home, so we have been, we're all up to speed on that kind of thing. So we're all able to, and that's why we basically produced the record ourselves.
Right.
And we were able to do that because of all the experience that we've had, and everybody is very proficient at recording at home, and and making that transition where we're sharing music. So yeah, it was really a huge thing to enable us to do this record.
Right. Well, I noticed that this record has a lot of punch to it. It's I'm going to call it a loud record. It's very loud. It's in your face. It's loud. It's a punch in the nose when you flip on the first track there, and it's high energy. That's what I like about it. There seems to be a lot of high energy songs in this disc.
That was, yeah. There's and that was on purpose. And one of the things, like when we did sign with Nuclear Blast, and Nuclear Blast, I will say they are so amazing to work with. They have just been tremendous, giving us 110%, creative freedom. And they really only had two expectations. They said they wanted songs that captured the spirit and the essence of the style of the first two records with modern production. That was it. That's what we want.
Well, I believe you accomplished that.
Well, the production, and I think that was easier. That was the easier part of it, because we're all using modern production anyway. And we had all, moving forward with that kind of style. Now the songwriting aspect, that was a little bit tougher, because that's a hard thing to do. We decided when we're going to make the record that we are going to do the best we can, trying to capture that original essence, but yet, we want the record to sound like it's modern. So yeah, it was a tricky thing to do.
Well, what stands out for this new release for you personally? I mean, what are you most proud of, or what would you like to point out to the fans about this particular record that, for you is like a high point for you?
A high point for me is that well, I guess let me say what I think Fifth Angel does best. And that is, what we do best is we write great songs. We're not a flashy band, even though we have really, really talented musicians, but our music isn't about showcasing Ken's, double kick skills or Kendall's guitar playing. We're not about that. I think we're about, first and foremost, is writing really good songs. And that is what we tried to do with this album. That we're like, regardless of the production, regardless of who's in the band, the bottom line is, are these good songs or not? And to me, I can listen to this record and go to my grave and be proud that this is a great record. We have we have good songs, and they're really good songs, and they're songs that are meaningful. This record has, and I think you would agree with me, has a lot of variety. It's like every song doesn't sound the same. There's some different sounds and moods and styles, and for me, that's what I like about it.
Sure, it's a diverse selection of tunes.
Yeah, and that was the words I was looking for.
Right, exactly. So anyway, what do you think of the way things are marketed now for a veteran band like a Fifth Angel? I mean, obviously the whole industry has changed. There really aren't any major record labels anymore. There is no MTV to promote videos. We're to the YouTube age where you put out a video via YouTube, and hopefully the fans of your band might find it, because there's just millions of bands out there who want to make it, whether they're independent or whether they have a legacy or whether they're signed to a indie label or something. But everybody is trying to stake out their little claim in the world of music and YouTube, and featuring it on outlets like Spotify or iTunes, or what are your thoughts on the modern way that music is distributed and promoted these days?
Well, and I'm not an expert in that field, but it is what it is. But I think, Wendell, that the social media, that seems to be the way it is. I mean, that seems to be about the only way, other than getting out there and playing live shows. But social media, seems to be that's the way to do it. That's what everybody's tapped into. I think the only problem with that is just it's very short lived. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you put something out, and everybody's, oh, great, and then a month later, they've already forgotten about it.
That is true.
So I think that's kind of the downfall of that. So I guess it's like you just got to continually be in people's faces all of the time, to constantly remind them, because I think everybody has such a short attention span. And I think social media in general is sort of geared at a short attention span. You're 5 minutes here and then 5 minutes there, and blah 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 blah. And I think that's what's great about the European fan. European fans don't really seem to be so dialed into that. They really seem to be more heart, more genuine. Like, they're fans, and once they're a fan, they are a fan, year after year. And that's probably why we do better over there.
Right. Absolutely. So with all that said, and obviously you understand, the temporary situation with a band releasing a full album, do you think it makes sense these days for anyone to release a full CD?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I still, I still think, Wendell, and I still want to believe that people like that, and of course they have an option. They can just buy one song, but I still think that people kind of like having a collection of songs. Regardless of what the format is, especially if they're good songs. Now, if the problem is that if you have an album or a CD of, let's say, whatever, 10, 12 songs, and only one of the songs or two at the most are good songs, and the rest of it is crap, then, then in that case, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think that if you have a whole record of, hey, these are all really good songs, then I think it's has a value.
All right. Well, I know that some other artists, some legacy artists, are trying to figure out a way, just like you mentioned a few minutes ago, about keeping yourself in their mind's eye, and they do things like maybe release one song at a time rather than release a whole CD. They release like one song at a time, like one song every 4 or 5 weeks, and by the time the year is over, you finally got the whole record.
I don't know. I'm old school, so I don't really subscribe to that method. But what do I know? I mean, I'm no marketing. I'm a smart guy, but I'm no marketing person by any means. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I noticed that maybe one of your contemporaries, like Stephen Pearcy from the band Rat, he's released his solo material like one song at a time, and like one video at a time, and he seems to have some success doing that. I don't know what the numbers and sales or anything are, but it seemed like he figured out a way to keep himself at the forefront, or keep the fans, his personal fans, interested.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really a tough time, for musicians, especially if you're trying to do it full time. I think for the players who are still doing it full time, or trying to do it full time, I think the only way is really to diversify yourself. You know what I mean?
I do.
But then that comes at a price too, because then then you're having to spread yourself out, and then the fans are questioning your loyalty, which is not fair, because it's like, if this artist that's the only way they know how to make a living, and then they don't really have a choice. I think the good old days where you join one band and you're in that band for the rest of your life, I think those days are gone, unless you're in Whitesnake, or you're in Judas Priest,
right? Absolutely.
Or Aerosmith. But those bands those are the few and far between. For example, one of my personal very dear friends is Jeff Loomis. He's the guitar player. He's currently with Arch Enemy. And Jeff was in Nevermore and Sanctuary. Jeff has he's an amazing guitar player. You know who he is, right?
I do, absolutely.
Yeah,
I had him on the show a few times.
Jeff has been very clever in in keeping himself busy and diversifying. He does a number of things. Obviously, Arch Enemy is his primary, that's his primary job, his primary gig. But he also does, he does his solo projects. He does clinics. He has his endorsements with Schecter guitars. So he keeps himself very. He's never sitting at home doing nothing. He's always busy. He's always finding ways to market himself, and he keeps his presence in this marketplace, in this industry, always at the time, and he's very successful at it. So I kind of use and he's always keeping abreast of technology. He's always finding the latest equipment and doing things that make his job and his profession profitable and moving forward with the future. And So I think for musicians who are doing this full time, he's a real good example that's what it takes nowadays is to do that kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely. Well, what is the plan for Fifth Angel now that you guys are, back together and have a new CD? What do you anticipate the rest of the year to hold for you and into the new year?
That's kind of an unknown. It's we're not exactly sure. We're kind of winging this. Because we didn't really plan on any of this. We're sort of, well, okay, the opportunity was kind of laid in front of us, and we're like, okay, well, let's make a record and see how that goes, and then we'll put it out and see what happens, because we're not exactly sure. We think this album is great. I think the album is great, but we're not assuming that the fans are going to feel the same way. So I think we would like to play shows in 2019. We have a couple shows booked right now. We have Metal Assault Festival in Germany in February, and then we have the Rock Hard in June. But that's it right now. And we would like, so the idea is, we would like to play some more shows next year, maybe do a couple of tours, but we don't really know. We don't know what the demand is going to be right now. Maybe after the record comes out and we have a better idea, we can kind of plan a little bit more, but right now it's sort of like we're kind of up in the air.
Sure, absolutely. Well, very good, John. I appreciate you taking some time and giving me the insight on what's going on with Fifth Angel. So is there anything I've missed, or is there something else you want to tell the fans, or like the cover?
No, not really. I mean, I guess the only message I would have to the fans is, give this record a shot. I know there's probably a lot of doubting Thomases out there. Because we don't have Ted Pilot, James is not on the record, but give this record a shot with a little bit of an open mind, and I think these songs are going to sneak up on you, and I think that the fans are really gonna like it, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Well, you can check out a Fifth Angel tune. They've got a video out there on YouTube. Can You Hear Me? And you can also go to their website over there at fifthangel.com, or you can check them out at their Facebook over at facebook.com/FifthAngelOfficial, and drop them a note and check out the CD, and as John said here, give it a chance. So, John, anything else you want to tell us?
No.
All right, excellent. Well, John, we always let the artist pick a closing song from the new release and maybe tell us a story about it. So what should we play, and why?
Let's see. Oh, that's a good one. Well, I would say, I'm going to say Dust to Dust.
Okay.
Dust to Dust is it was one of those songs that originally we kind of thought, this is not going to be one of the great songs on the record, and it wound up kind of inching its way up into our personal favorites. I really like the song a lot because it's really driving, and it's got a great hook, and it's one of my personal favorites. So please play that one.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, the new Fifth Angel out on Nuclear Blast is called The Third Secret, and this is something brand new from this one. This one is called Dust to Dust, exclusively here on Your Classic Metal Show.